to beat Tani, who was on a roll, and Andy lost again against Ryo, and that makes a massive log jam as we head into round 6. And I literally don't know where to go. So once again, International Women's Day is tomorrow, but it comes early for you, Yovi. You get to pick which game we go to because there's a lot of good choices.
There's certainly a lot of good choices. I'm very tempted by the game actually between Megan and Faustino. Looks like a very interesting, exciting open Sicilian, and also Mendes Woodward. It looks like a little bit more of a slow burner, and between Tani and Ryo, again, that's a close position where White is looking to expand on the queen side. So I'm actually going to vote for Megan against Faustino.
All right, you get your way. After all, when do you see a rook on d7 early in the game? You are the first person in history to describe a Maroczy Bind setup as exciting, but I knew what you meant. It's an unorthodox Maroczy Bind setup. This rook is almost never on d7, but in the Maroczy Bind, if you can get d5 in, you've essentially unbound yourself. And that is clearly what Fausti's trying to do. He's putting every single one of his army members. Can I call them army members? Do I sound like a 4-year-old? We have been reading Chess for Babies. Shout out to Gotham Chess. I just sold you 10 books. Actually, you don't need my help. But this pawn is coming to d5 if black gets his way. And that would at least equalize for black if it ever happens.
Yeah, and it just goes to show what kind of style I had as a chess player, that I really find the Maroczy as a very exciting opening. I think I got very into it playing the white side of things. It was like, think of that pressure against d6. And the thing is, for black, if they break out, the tables will turn almost immediately. Black will be super active. They'll suddenly have a lot of targets. But if white keeps control, then everything goes in white's favor in return. So here, the queen has a choice. Can it snatch that pawn on b4? I think he got into trouble with some kind of potential attacks. So that's why instead it moves to c6. And now there's a question how to defend e4. Because if you do it via traditional ways with knight to d2, well, then suddenly there's going to be ideas. Actually, first up, you don't defend it. So
yeah. I think that black is actually getting a little bit more play than black usually gets. And I think I was also projecting. I had some bad losses growing up playing against the Maroczy Bind simply because you can get yourself in such a position where you have almost no ideas. Even one of those Kasparov Deep Blue matches back in 2003, even Kasparov, I remember shuffling his pieces around. So it can be frustrating to play against. But black seems to have some targets here. This pawn, this knight, the rook's going to come in the game. I'm not saying black is better, but this is a lot more free than a lot of Maroczy Bind positions are.
right. Another big question is like knight to d2, it does invite black to capture that pawn on e4, right? And then the question is, actually, would that be a huge mistake? Because white could just flick in ideas such as b5.
Ooh.
And suddenly it's an overloaded piece. But no, that wasn't the intention, actually.
Let's go back, though, because I think this idea, these are easy moves to miss, these in-between moves. After pawn to b5, does the queen have somewhere to go to guard the knight, or is there a counterattack that I don't see? I'm actually a little bit puzzled as to what happens after b5. But anyway, let's just take a look at what happened here. We had knight takes, which is a question mark. And apparently f5, don't even take the knight back. Okay, let's see if Fausti finds this move. Of course, the knight can't move because the checkmate on g2. But you don't need to push an f-pawn. I think you can just take or something. Okay, if you take and the queen takes and the bishop takes, there's the amazing knight to c5, taking advantage of the pawn being pinned, forking the rook and the knight. So it's a must find. f5 is a must find. Yeah. He's got 43 seconds. Will the Messi of chess play pawn to f5, or will he jump offside to continue the soccer reference and play queen takes, which would be a huge misstep. Oh, it's a yellow card on Fausti. Let's see if Megan finds it. Oh, she puts the knight on b6.
Oh, she misses it.
If she plays knight c5, she's better.
Yeah, well, she goes knight to b6. And I can see why, because you do pick up the a6 pawn at the end of it, and it's very, very tempting. But yeah, what a golden opportunity it was for Megan to fork both the rook and the knight. But now this is almost anyone's game here, as white is now going to start to push back the black pieces first and then start just advancing the queen side.
golden opportunity, but it could have been a golden goal. Sorry to, hammer that metaphor more. You know what's probably as important as anything is her extra minute. The extra minute here feels every bit as important as her past B pawn. Now the pawns are targeted. She's got to still step a little bit carefully. But I'm a big fan of simplifying here. I think I would double rooks and play rook a8 or something just to relieve some of the pressure on my queenside pieces. But she goes for it right away with pawn to c5. Rook over, okay. And now here, if you step back with the bishop, you pin the pawn. Or, yeah, she just steps back with the bishop. Looks like a pretty smart idea.
It certainly does. You can't take on c5 because rook takes rook. And after all the recaptures, rook a8 would be winning. But rook a8, the blue arrow saying that this is a fantastic move. That's a very difficult move to kind of spot, because why would you swap off your most active piece? So instead, Fausti, I still think, is in a spot of bother, because it's not easy when you just have seconds left on the clock to deal with the advancing c-pawn. Now, white has to be a little bit careful because rook to d1 is going to come with deadly effect if you don't make luft for the king.
And if your king goes to f1, there's bishop d3 forking your king and rook. If you play g3, bishop h3 is a problem. If you play h3, bishop c7 is a problem. It actually wasn't easy to make luft. Every single normal luft move was a problem. So I've got 99 luft balloon problems. Okay, that was terrible. That's not going to work. Can we edit that? Oh, we're live? Okay, let's go back to our game. Opposite colored bishops, but again, past c-pawn gives her the better chances. Her 22 seconds extra time give her the better advantage, but Fausti keeps hanging around.
And Fausti's quick, so somehow he's going to be in his element with just seconds left on the clock. Well, but there's a pass pawn one square away from queening. Pawn takes pawn. Pawn takes pawn is simply going to allow, yes, and now rook takes. G2 is in the air, so not easy. Fausti fighting hard.
You have to lose the pawn. She plays king up, so rook takes becomes a non-checking move. So objectively equal, but now the pawn on c7 is... I actually don't even know what color I'd rather be, because I want the passed c-pawn, but black technically has an extra pawn. There are some dangers of that bishop getting attacked with rook to d8. But as long as the rook and the bishop keep an eye on c8, there's no way that white can get a second defender of the c8 square. And black actually I think black's trying to win this still.
Definitely, because Megan, on more than one occasion, actually offered to trade off rooks. And now with these double two pass pawns, is going to be simply marching them down. You can throw in a check. That's what she does. You can throw in another check on c2.
She might want to play bishop d2.
A nice getaway. Bishop d2.
Yeah, get rid of the c-pawn. I know it's hard to do, but both those black pawns are on dark squares. They're not going to remain on the dark squares for too much longer, though. That's why I might pitch the c-pawn. But now see, the pawns have gotten to safer squares. Her king's in big trouble. She's no longer ahead on the clock. Let's see if she can still eke out a draw here. The promotion square is a light square, and she has to give up the ghost. What a comeback from the Messi of chess. She puts her hand over her mouth. Yeah, this is tough. She played the under 13 last year, but it is so tough in this under 16. Keep in mind, she's still eligible to play in this tournament for like 3 more years. Okay, so I'm super happy that she's here playing.